Welcome, everybody. This is the uniform application training for hospital discounted care and CICP. My name is Taryn Graff. I'm the CICP administrator. I also have Chandra Patel on. She is the state programs unit supervisor.
Good morning.
Today we're going to go through the slides, and we'll also go through the uniform application. I'll do a little bit of just a walkthrough of different tabs. If you have any questions throughout, please feel free to put them in the chat as they come up, or the Q&A pod that works. Either one will work, and we will answer those as we go along. If you would rather ask over the phone, you can raise your hand on the Zoom and I can unmute you. So just in case you missed it, the slides are currently available on the website. Hospital discounted care and CICP, both of those, so you can go grab them, either one. So the slides are out there. The recording will be available, either this one or the one from yesterday, one of the two. I think that is it. So I did want to mention, if we get questions about like policies and procedures, we might put those to the side, until we get through everything. Then if we have time at the end, we can go back and answer some of those. But today is going to be about the application. All right. So today, again, we're going to talk about policies for all the application worksheets or tabs, since it is an Excel file. We'll talk about the policies for each, and we'll also talk about CICP only sections. So the uniform application is currently, it's actually 0.1, it's not version 1 yet. And it will, like I said, there will be an update from just things that we identified yesterday that we want to change that people asked for. And I'll go through those when we get to the actual application. This one will be effective starting June 1st for all of our CICP hospitals, and then September 1st for all of our other hospitals, assuming that the delay start bill gets signed, which we don't have any reason to think that it won't be. The version that will be effective for everybody starting September 1st will be effective through March 31st of 2023, unless there is a coding error that's detected that needs to be fixed, in which case there will be a new version that will be sent out. The notification of that new version will go out to the hospital discounted care newsletter, and also the CICP newsletter. If you have not signed up for those, please do so. If you go to the hospital discounted care website, there is a link. It's actually right above where the uniform application is, that says sign up for the newsletter. You can click there, pick the hospital discounted care or any of the CICP ones if you're not signed up for those either, and get signed up so that you get all of those notifications. So some general rules for the application. It should not be being filled out by the patients. The patients are unaware of how this application is coded. They don't understand the policies behind it. And so the health facilities should be the ones that are doing the actual filling out of the application. The screening in the application should be completed in the same workbook for each household that chooses to apply for discounted care. So we're going to go through a little bit where the screening is one process and then the application is a separate process. You will not complete both for everybody. People who are screened may decide not to apply, in which case their workbook will only have the screening part filled out. For anybody who does decide to apply, all of their application would then go into the following tabs. So the screening for discounted care is completed using the self-attested information from the patient or the guardian on the very first tab in the uniform application. That screening asks about household information, including household members, the household address, birth dates, contact information, Colorado residency, insurance status, and income. At the bottom of that first tab, it'll calculate the household size and income using various household definitions. CICP and hospital discounted care use the same household definition, but it is different from the Medicaid household definition. So there will be different household groups based on the people that are listed in the household for the patient potentially. So the screening results determine if the household is potentially, likely, or not likely eligible for Health First Colorado, CHIP Plus, Medicare, CICP, and hospital discounted care. Facilities should only be informing patients of the programs that they are likely or potentially eligible for. We don't want anybody telling somebody that they are not likely eligible for something because we don't want to discourage them from applying if they feel like they want to. Also, this is a very preliminary screening. It does not have all of the official screening questions. So it's very likely that some of these are not going to be correct for everybody. So we're only informing them of the things that we believe they are likely or potentially eligible for. So this is a screenshot of what the current application looks like. It has 3 different sections for household size and income. So the first one is just everything as presented. So in this situation, they had 4 people that were on the application, income at 36,000, and then their FPG was 136. For Health First, CHIP, and emergency Medicaid, it looks like one of those household members was determined to not likely be included on their taxes, which is how that section is coded. So you can see that FPG actually went up. And then the bottom one for hospital discounted care matches the first one, but that one may also be different from that first one as well, just depending on the household members and who is included in there. There is also a box at the bottom that spells out whether or not the household is likely eligible, potentially eligible, or likely not eligible for the different programs. One of the requests that we got yesterday was to color code this, so that is something that we are looking into doing to make sure that is a little bit more easily read. So that is one of the changes that will be coming in one of the future versions. So the next tab in the uniform application is the patient information tab. Information that's entered into the screening tab is going to populate on the patient information tab as well. Additional information may be entered if the household decides to apply for hospital discounted care or for CICP or for both. That information includes their birth dates, their Health First Colorado or CHIP Plus ID number if they have one and if they have it available. And then for CICP only, their social security number and their ineligibility code. Every line should be filled out for each of the household members included in the application. Data entered into the patient information tab is going to pull through to every other worksheet in the application. You want to make sure to enter the date as the date that the application is started. Applicants have 45 days from that date to ensure that all of the documentation that they need to send in is provided and to ensure that all of the information that they have provided is still relevant to their situation. If they do not send it in within 45 days, you can request updated information to make sure that you are taking into account their most recent situation there. The household address should be the address of all household members included in the application that are applying to receive services under CICP or hospital discounted care. Applicants are allowed to include household members that they are supporting that live in other states or countries, including their spouse, their children, etc. Those household members would be counted in the household size only. They would not be on any card that you decide to do for CICP. They wouldn't be on the card. And then applicants should not include household members that live at different addresses who wish to receive services under hospital discounted care and or CICP. Those applicants will need to apply separately. And then the ineligibility codes, this is for CICP providers only. So if you're not a CICP provider, you can just ignore these sections. For my CACP providers, there's no changes to these, so they work as they always have. And if you have questions on those, you can send them to the CACP inbox and I'll help walk you through those. The first worksheet is the income worksheet. There are boxes on the right of the worksheet, which are used to calculate employment income for each working household member. And I want to remind you all that income from working minors or adult students who are living with their parents or their guardians is exempt and should not be included in the application. So to the right of worksheet 1, there's two calculation boxes and two calculation boxes and one income box. The two calculation boxes are the year-to-date and the average pay. And this is what those two look like. So you would enter in on the year-to-date one, you'd enter in the cumulative year-to-date earnings. So there should be on their pay stub a line that says year-to-date. You would put the total in there. Pay period type is a drop down. And then you have to put in how many paychecks they have received in this calendar year. The average pay method also has a drop down for pay period type, and then you would enter in as many pay stubs as they bring you. This does have a limit of 5 on here, but if they bring you, the full 5, you can add all of those in there, and it will figure out what their monthly income is. So the year-to-date calculation, this one's the best method to use because it captures all the fluctuations in pay for the entire calendar year. Like I mentioned, there are 3 components to it. There are the cumulative earnings year-to-date, which is the gross year-to-date line on their pay stub. The pay period type and the ones included in the application are weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, and monthly. And then you would need to know the number of checks that they have received to date. And then all of that information you should be able to get off of their pay stub. The average pay method, this is for pay stubs that don't have a year-to-date line. Those are the ones that the average pay method works the best, or if the patient has had a recent change in how they're paid, that average pay might be a better way to look at their income. For this one, there's only the 2 components. So the recent pay stubs, more pay stubs are better. It's best to have at least a month's worth if possible. It ensures that the recent fluctuations in pay are captured. And then for the pay period type, like I mentioned with year to date, we have weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, and monthly. So once you figure out the monthly income for each household member, you would enter it into the income box next to their name. So this box will auto-populate with all of the names of the household. Because I have that on the next slide. So the household members' names will populate into that box. The employment information should be added next to each member using their monthly income that's been calculated in those calculation boxes. And then the uniform application is going to calculate their annual income automatically. So the other section of that worksheet is unearned or other income. So we have lines for SSI, SSDI, disbursement from retirement accounts, pension payments, payments from trust funds, and disbursement from lottery winnings. And then in the annual or one time, we have bonuses, which that would come off of their pay stubs. Short-term disability, you'd enter the full amount of their short-term disability payments. Unemployment, again, full amount of their unemployment. And then tips and commissions, and that is only if those are not a normal thing that they get on their pay stub. Income sources that are entered into that top monthly section will annualize, whereas the ones entered into the bottom will just pull straight over, and they will not annualize because they are one time. So for bonuses, tips, and commissions, if they are not on every paycheck, that's when that information should be added into the unearned lines. If they are included on every paycheck, or if they are recurrent, so if it's every other paycheck or once a month or whatever, those should also be included in the monthly income calculation.
Okay, we have a question. Total possible payments from unemployment or SSD or total to date.
So unemployment and short-term disability are only going to be included if they're currently getting it, because you're looking at what their current situation is, and it'll be what's in their bank or whatever. Yeah, what's in their bank. I think that also answers the one in the chat, hopefully.
Rhonda, do you need more information on your question of what Taryn just answered? And then from Dorothy, when you look at the unearned, does it give you form for each member of the family?
No, so the unearned section is it's going to be one section for everybody. So if you have multiple people, so say you have, 2 retired people in the household and they're both getting monthly payments from their retirement accounts, you would do the full amount for both of their payments on that line.
And then what if the client does not provide the letter from UIB?
So that's something that they would have to supply to you. So you would not be able to finish the application until they submit that information to you.
For now.
All right. We did have a pause there for questions. So like I said, if you can put them in whenever they come to you, but we will also have pauses. So
then Rhonda elaborated, yes, we use to divide the unemployment to calculate. If UIB letter is required, is it possible to add a box for document next to it as it shows on the top section?
So I think you're talking about these two, the documented versus self-declared. So it is in the operations manual that they have to have the documentation for short-term and unemployment. So we don't want to have the check boxes there because they must be documented.
Okay, and then now you want the total on the bank. Do you mean from the bank, Rhonda?
That goes with the unemployment. Yeah, so if they're currently getting the unemployment, then we just want the full amount of what their payments are going to be from unemployment on there.
Again, if you have 2 individuals with SSA income, we would just add both of their gross income and enter it on the section right.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, and as long as you have the, if they have brought their documentation in that shows what their SSA is, which or their retirement account or whatever, as long as you have that, it should be easy for the auditor to figure out that it's just added together. So all right, so the second worksheet is for self-employed household members. This one must be included for any household member who owns their own business, with a couple exceptions. The first one being household members who pay themselves as they would any other employee, in which case their income can be entered into worksheet 1. And then household members using taxes as their documentation. For that one, you could just take their total annual divided by 12 and enter that into worksheet 1 as their monthly. Businesses that are losing money should still have all of the information included. They will be counted at $0, not at that negative amount. And the Excel application will automatically resort to 0 if the expenses outweigh the income.
Taryn, of those unearned income, are any self-declared?
The ones on the top section can be self-declared, yes. The ones on the bottom, 2 of them would come off of a pay stub, and then the other 2, we've said that those need to be documented. So bonuses, tips, and commissions would all come off their pay stub. And then unemployment and short-term disability, they would need the documentation for as well.
And do we need proof of expenses for the whole 12 months?
You do not. So if they're doing like a profit and loss and it's a monthly, then you can just use the monthly.
But if we are using their taxes?
All right, so taxes, they would be able to tell you, you know, if they are paying for, let's say, like, I don't know, insurance or advertising or whatever, they'd be able to show you like maybe their most recent um, bill or payment for those things. You wouldn't have to get 12 months of actual payments or expenses from that. No.
Okay, I get unemployment of $200 a week, which calculates to $866.60 a month, but I only have $500 left to draw out.
Rhonda, I'm not sure. That's why you would do this. If it's 500, you just put the 500 in there.
Okay, and then
Just so
which
I'm not
line on the
confused.
taxes would be used for income?
Um, that's a good question. I think it's, I would have to look at it. And I don't know off the top of my head which one it would be, but it should be what I think it's their, whatever they end up actually reporting to the feds. Chandra, do you know like what that line is called? I'm not sure.
We just got total income is currently in line 9 of 2021 taxes. Thank you, Crystal.
Okay, so for businesses that are run out of the home, the household member can include a portion of the mortgage or the rent, the utilities, et cetera, as an expense. There's 4 boxes at the top of that worksheet that must be filled out for those percentages to be calculated correctly. These are things that they already do on their business taxes, so they should have all of that information. And then for businesses outside of the home, household members would be able to use the entirety of their mortgage or rent and utilities at that location as an expense. In that case, the first box at the top of that worksheet should be set to no to ensure that the full amount of the mortgage and rent and utilities are counted.
Taryn, where would we document cash gifts for someone who receives free room and board and money from or expenses from a family member?
I don't know that we would include that. That's not something that we've included as one of our unearned income sources. So,
And then I'm not sure if you need total income or adjusted gross income.
I think we're using adjusted gross for businesses. All right. So some households may have more than one business that is run by one or more of the household members. Since there is only one worksheet 2 available in the application, you may need to fill it out for each business to find the net income and then kind of work it from there. So if you do that, you would need to fill out the information, print that worksheet, and keep that with the application so that you can figure out which one goes with which business. We do have an example as well. So for this one, the first business operated from the home, the square footage of the home is 2,500 square feet. The household member uses a space that's 250 square feet for the business, and they use that space 60 hours a week. They have a gross income of $4,000. The mortgage of the home is $1,800 with $400 of utilities. And then for the business, they pay $500 in insurance and they pay $1,200 in cost of goods. So you can see that their total expenses for the month comes out to $1,778.57. So that means that $1,700 of it is counted in the insurance and merchandise cost of goods. And then the additional $78.57 comes from the percentage of the mortgage and utilities that they're allowed to count. And it comes out to a total monthly income for this business of $2,221.43. And then we have the second one, which you can see that the square footage of the house is the same. The mortgage and utilities stayed the same, but the square footage of the home that's used for the business and the hours worked here, these two changed. The income changed and the insurance and cost of goods. So you see this, some of these stay the same because it is the same house. And then some of them are specific to the business, so those change. So this one came out to $1,997.62 for the month.
Crystal was nice enough to let us know that the AGI is on line item 11 of the 2021 tax year 1040 forms.
Oh, thank you. It's good to know. And those are very confusing to look at sometimes. Depending on the business, they're even worse. I had somebody send in a farm one and it took me a while to figure it out. So thank you for that. All right. So for this example, if you add the two businesses together, you get that the household members have a profit of $4,219.05 monthly, which comes out to $50,628.60 annually. And you could put this information into the application a couple different ways. You can enter in the monthly for each business next to the appropriate household member on worksheet 1, like you would with their employment income. Or you could enter in the total monthly profit into the gross business income line of worksheet 2 and just remove everything else so that it just counts the income. In either one of those cases, you want to keep those two versions of worksheet 2 that you use to figure out the income for each business in the application so that you can go back and follow all of those. So this is what the first option would look like. You can see that you put the first business was the $2,221.43. So that went with the applicant. And then the second one was $1,997.62, and that went with the first household member. You get your total, and then the annualized income there on the left. And then the second option, the worksheet 2 was cleared out except for the gross business income, which gives you that same annualized number. So either one of those ways would work if you happen to have a household with more than one business. All right. Our third worksheet is for deductions. Facilities are allowed and encouraged to continue using any deductions that they currently use in their charity care programs. You want to be very careful to choose the correct frequency on that worksheet. I believe it is weekly, bi-weekly, and monthly. We'll have to look at it when we get there. But an incorrect choice there can impact your total deduction by a lot. There are no mandated deductions for hospital discounted care or CICP. So this is going to be solely based on what the facilities are already doing for their internal charity care programs and what they want to continue for CICP and hospital discounted care.
And Taryn, would it be suggested to copy the worksheet and adding the worksheet on the bottom tabs to keep that scratch document all together with the application?
You might be able to do that. I don't know what that would do. I don't think that would mess up any of the coding or anything, but you would want to make sure that when you do the total, it's in the original worksheet and not one of the copies.
And the gross business income was the AGI, correct? I missed that clarification.
Yes, adjusted gross income, AGI.
Can you give more info on the elderly care allowable deduction? The current CICP manual is not very specific.
CICP doesn't have a mandated deduction for elderly care. At least not that I remember.
I don't recall there being one.
No, I think all of the providers are allowed to decide what their deductions are, and we don't have a mandated one anymore, but let me just check really quick to make sure. That is one that we have allowed in the past, or that was one that we had mandated in the past. But yeah, we don't have that any longer. You all decide what your deductions are for your facility because you know your patient population best. Let's see.
So Monica, I would suggest seeing if you have the most updated operations manual for CICP.
Yep. That's available on the CACP website, which put that in the chat really quick. Yeah, that has been that. I don't think that one's been mandated for a while. So the next tab in the uniform application is the actual application tab. It is the accumulation of all of the previous worksheets. Information that was entered into the patient information tab is in section 1. And then information that's entered into worksheets 1 through 3 is in section 2. And then facilities will need to assign each household member a designation in the last column on that section. And the drop-down menu options are CICP and hospital discounted care, and then just CICP. There is a line on there for the federal poverty guideline for the household and their caps. The application will automatically calculate those things for you, the household size, the income, and the federal poverty guideline. And it calculates the household CICP annual cap, if applicable, and the 4% or 2% payment plan monthly maximums for hospital discounted care. Facilities should have patients sign the application if at all possible. We understand that this is not always feasible. We did learn a lot with COVID and having everybody doing things remotely. We know that our CICP providers, at the very least, are more than capable of collecting signatures via email or over the phone. So we have added a checkbox for if the household is notified of their determination via phone, email, or other.
Is there a reason why terminology of FPG versus FPL?
Yes. So when we were doing the rules for hospital discounted care, we got a note from the AG's office that it is more accurate to use FPG. So that's what we are going to be using from now on. So there's no difference really. It's the same FPG, FPL, but federal poverty guidelines is technically the accurate term. So that's what we're going to be using. All right. The effective dates, in general, determinations for hospital discounted care and CICP are valid for a year. Effective dates should match the earlier of the date that the application is started, also called the application date, or the first date of service the patient is applying to cover, so the earlier of each one of those. For my CICP providers, this more or less eliminates that standard 90-day backdating period. Backdates can now technically be up to 181 days per the hospital discounted care bill, and potentially longer if the facility decides to allow a patient to apply past the 181-day mark.
So a signature is not required moving forward.
A wet signature is not required. That is correct. And we've actually removed the patient or guardian signature line from the worksheets, and there's only a line now on the application tab.
And just to cap onto that, Taryn, there is a signature that is required for no social security number tab.
That is correct. Yes. Yep. That's the only one that an actual signature is required for. And if your facility has a electronic signature thing that you can use, like DocuSign, that is also allowable for those. The last part on the application tab is the notes section. Anything that is out of the ordinary that occurs during the application process should be included there to help aid in an audit. It's better to have too much information than not enough. It's also helpful for the auditors as well as for redeterminations for the household. If there was a special situation in effect for the household, that is still in effect for them at their redetermination.
Just for clarification, the no SSN declaration is only for CICP, correct? This isn't required for HDC.
That is correct. It's only for CICP. And I do have a slide on that, just a couple slides. So almost there. The next tab is the CICP card. Household members are added to the card by having an ineligibility code assigned to them on the patient information tab. So this is how that's always worked. So no change on that for my CACP providers. If someone's on the card and they shouldn't be, just go remove their ineligibility code and they will come off of the card. The begin and end date cells are unlocked so that they can be changed if needed. Again, the effective dates now are the earlier of the application date or the date of service that the person is applying to cover. And you should not make that card valid for more than 365 days. So if they are applying and it's at the 181st day, you would backdate what is essentially 6 months. And then that card is only going to be valid for 6 more months to make that full year.
If we are backdating up to 181 days, do we still use their current income, or would we ask for proof of income from that time period?
You want to use their current income. So that's going to be the general rule. If they've had a change and they are making more than they would have been making back when they actually had the services, and you would like to use their income from back then, you are allowed to do that. You would definitely need to document that in their application so that it's clear to an auditor if that gets pulled. Okay, so the next tab on there is a CICP and or hospital discounted care card. So this one for our CICP providers or just our non-CICP providers, you'd be able to use this card if you choose. You don't have to, but household members are added to that card by having a program code assigned to them on the application tab. So again, if somebody's on the card that shouldn't be, just go remove their program code, or if they're not on the card and they should be, then they're missing the program code. The begin and end date cells are unlocked on this one as well so that they can be changed. Again, that begin date should be the earlier of the date of the application or the date of service that they're applying to cover, and do not make that card valid for more than 365 days. The next tab is for CICP client responsibilities. This is information only for those CICP eligible household members. Providers may ask the patient and other household members to sign it if you choose. That's not mandatory. You do not need to include a copy of this with the application. It's purely educational. And then the CICP welcome letter. This was added a couple years ago just to help easily create a welcome letter for the clients. You'd select the range that they fall into to get their copays. That copay table is editable for providers who use other sliding fee scales. Again, not mandatory to use this one. You can use your own if you'd like. And then the last tab is the no social security number form. Again, this is CICP only. And if a household member does not have a social, then they must complete that form, and that one must be signed. And then a note about lawful presence. Lawful presence is not required for hospital discounted care. Colorado residency is. So if they are Colorado resident but not lawfully present, they would still be eligible for hospital discounted care. And since lawful presence is not a requirement, it's not something that you should be asking them about anyway. And then as of July 1st, there's no lawful presence requirement for CICP. Providers will still need to collect the lawful presence affidavits during the month of June for CICP. And those affidavits are available on the provider information website in both English and Spanish, I believe. And I believe it's a PDF that you should be able to fill out. So that's no longer in the application, but for CICP for the month of June, you will still need to collect those. Okay, so my last slide is just the contact information. Again, my name is Taryn Graff. I am the CICP administrator, and I've put the emails for both CICP and hospital discounted care on here. You can send all of your questions that you may have after this to those. And then we are going to take the rest of the time to go through the actual application to see how everything works. So,
Taryn, is the no SSN form required for all applicants that are applying for CICP, or just the patient head of household?
That would be for any household member that wants to be covered under CICP who doesn't have a social. So not just for the patient, unless the patient's the only one that wants to be covered.
What if the person is a minor?
That's a really good question. I think they still have to fill it out.
Well, in the past, normally they would get better coverage going under CHIP Plus.
If they're undocumented though.
And so this is something we need to discuss as far as HTC. We don't require it, or I'm sorry, for CICP. We don't require it for HDC, but I am thinking that with CICP, if it's requirement for anybody who wants to receive the services, it's going to be a requirement no matter what the age is. Let's go ahead and do some more talking offline on this, Taryn, because we might need to add more boxes for that social.
All right.
Does this delay the application processing with no signature on this form, or can we proceed with the processing the application and obtain signatures at a later time?
So you'd be able to go all the way through and figure out their FPG and all of that. And then the last thing, it would just depend on if they're applying for CICP, you may have to delay putting CICP on their card until you get that no social security number form signed.
Is the no SSN form going to still be required after July 1st for CICP?
Yes. So the social security number requirement for CICP is not changing. We do have a couple changes that are happening with CICP, but that's not one of them.
Okay, and again, to clarify for the SSN, for CICP, we still have to have an SSN correct. If the patient does not have it, they can sign the form.
Yes, that's correct.
And will you let us know about undocumented minors needing to sign the no SSN form? For example, what happens if a parent is applying for their 4-year-old son who is autistic?
Yeah, we'll let you know. And I think in that case for a minor, the parent would be able to sign it. But yeah, we will look into that and we'll let you know.
And we'll absolutely also have the answer to this in the FAQs. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That was all of the slides. And now I'm going to go through. All right. So hopefully you all can see that now. So this is the one that is currently available out on the website. Like I said, there were a couple things that we identified that are going to have to be updated, which I didn't update in this one. So like this line here got cut off somehow. There's a question up here. This one is specifically about if there's anybody in the household that's under the age of 19. And that one actually is a CHIP Plus question. And then there was a couple coding things that we noticed. So this one is not going to be the final version that will be for our providers, our CICP providers starting June 1st. There will be an update, but it should look relatively the same. So.
Okay, we have a question. Maybe I missed, will there need to be a written signature on the application for HDC as we have many applications done over the phone with docs sent in?
There will not, and I can jump to that really quick. So here is the application. And we have here this line, patient was contacted by phone, email, or other, and you can type in here if it was something else, and documentation of contact is attached in lieu of signature. So you will be able to do the phone or whatever. And if you do a phone call, you could just write on there who you talk to, date and time, and who talked to them. And you can do that in application notes. That would work. I do want to clarify, this is in addition to the notification of determination that is required by the bill. So you do still have to do that determination notification that was discussed in the policies and procedures training, and that is outlined in the operations manual. Okay, so we're just going to walk through this. So this is the screening form. So this will be the one that you need to fill out for any uninsured patient and any insured patient who asks to be screened. We have a couple questions about you all. So the eligibility technician's full name, the facility name, the phone number, and then today's date. And then whether or not the patient received a CICP eligible service at a CICP provider. And this is a drop down yes or no. And then if the patient received care for a medical emergency, and this is a yes or no drop down as well.
So there is only one place that asks for signatures as opposed to the current CICP forms that ask for signature on multiple pages.
Yes, so the application tab is going to be the only one with the patient signature, except for that no social security number form. So on a normal application where everybody has a social and they don't have to fill out that form, the only signature line now is on the application and not on any of the worksheets. All right, so like I said, top section provided by the eligibility technician. Next section is all of the responses provided by the patient. And again, this is all self-attested information. There's no documentation needed at this point in the process. So you have the patient's name, last name, first name, and their middle initial if they want to provide that. Their street address, their city of residence, zip code, county, primary phone number, primary email address, and then their preferred method of contact. And then whether or not the patient is experiencing homelessness, and this will be a yes or no. What that does is if there is a patient who is experiencing homelessness, they are exempt from all of the documentation requirements. So it's just based on their self-attestation for the screening and the application.
Okay, we haven't quite got there yet, but are your definitions of medical emergency the same as for emergency Medicaid, life or limb threatening emergency, as well as birth?
Yes. So that question is actually going to be helping you screen for if the person is eligible for emergency Medicaid. So that is, yes, that matches that definition. All right, so moving right along, we have the patient's birthday, whether or not they are currently a Colorado resident. And in this one, they have a yes, no, or didn't want to answer. Obviously, if they say no, then that will make them ineligible for CICP and hospital discounted care. And then if they don't want to answer, it makes it to where their screening comes up with could not determine due to residency. But you know, since you have to screen all your uninsured patients, this helps you figure out who would be eligible and who is not, based on their residency. Then we have if the patient is currently pregnant, again, yes, no, didn't want to answer. This one is if there's household members under the age of 19. I have no idea how that got cut off, but that will be fixed. Again, yes, no, didn't want to answer.
Taryn, I'm sorry, can we go back up to the residency, please?
Oh,
I
sure.
just wanted to let everyone know that for the bordering hospitals, I mean, the department is not making it a requirement for HDC that the patient is a Colorado resident. If they want to accept somebody from another state and they're a border hospital, we are fine with you doing that. Our stipulation is we cannot mandate for hospitals to accept residents that are outside of Colorado. So I just wanted to make that stipulation for everybody.
Thank you, Chandra. Yes, so you don't have to take anybody who's not a resident, but you can if you want to. Okay. Then we have a section on disabilities. If they have one, or if they receive federal disability income, this is helping you screen for Medicare. If they're uninsured, and then a note that health sharing ministries do not count as insurance. So that is not a full insurance. There's no defined benefits with health sharing ministries. So if that's what they say they have, they are considered uninsured for hospital discounted care and for CICP. If they've been covered under Medicaid or CHIP Plus? And if so, if they have their ID number, and then if they have an unexpired Colorado Indigent Care Program rating. And the reason that this is important is if they have one, you would be able to just take their CICP card, and you wouldn't have to do an application for them because the FPG would work for this. So for my CICP providers, we will be going over in CICP training about the transition from CICP to CICP and hospital discounted care, and we'll go over all of that. So more on that later. For the household size and income, I have a question about how many people live in the household. If the patient has income per month, what that number is. This one is anyone in your household pregnant right now? So we asked about the patient, now we're asking about other household members. And if so, this would be the number of babies expected. So if this is a no, you can leave it blank or you can put a 0 in there. And then if it is, if there are pregnant people in the household, then you would add those pregnancies down in the household numbers. So say that it's a couple and it's their first baby, you would just put, baby whatever here. And this would be minor child. And then there wouldn't be a birth date for the baby, obviously, or a social. So, but that's how you would count unborn children or pregnancies that are in the household. And then we have the name of each household member, the relationship to the patient, if they have any income, what that income is per month, and then if that household member is included in the patient or guardian's taxes. That is to help figure out what the household composition would be for Health First, CHIP Plus, and emergency Medicaid. Again, they don't have to answer this one if they don't want to, but it makes it to where you can't fully determine their potential eligibility for Health First, CHIP Plus, or emergency Medicaid. We did for my CICP providers, that this application has always been capped at 7 household members. We did expand it to 10. So hopefully that will cover some of the outlying ones where you were having to do 2 applications for 1 household. If for some reason you have a household that has more than 10 people, please let me know. We were hoping that 10 would cover the majority, if not all. But if for some reason we really do have to expand this, we can, but we're hoping that 10 will work. The next section is for facility deductions. So if your facility is going to include deductions to the income for CICP or hospital discounted care, those would be here. These are editable, so you can type in what the deduction is and then what the monthly is. And again, this is all based on self-attested information. And if they do an actual application, then you can get the documentation for that at that point. But right now, self-attested only. So question, household member 1 should be the head of the household or the applicant. No. So the patient is so the patient is the patient. And then, so if the patient's a minor, it would be one of their parents. If the patient is one of the parents, then it could be the spouse. So it's not necessary, like you want to make sure you're not putting the patient on there twice. All right, so this section, this is going to auto calculate the household size and income and the FPG. The first one is just as presented. So it's however many people are stated to be in the household income, and then what the FPG is. The next one is for Health First Colorado, CHIP Plus, and emergency Medicaid. And this will go off of people that we expect are included on their taxes, as well as people that they state are included on their taxes. So really that's going to be spouses and children. So this one might be a little bit different than how they present their household in total. And then for CICP, you can see that this number, this FPG went down, and that's because it's taking into account the monthly deductions that you put in here. So potentially three different household sizes and income and FPGs. And then like I had in the slides, we have this screening results box. And again, some of these for some reason resized themselves and they've been cut off, so that will be fixed. But it'll tell you if they are likely not eligible, potentially eligible, or likely eligible for these programs. And you can see, since we did not put in a residency answer for CICP and hospital discounted care, they both say could not determine residency. So if you go up and fix that, which, sorry for scrolling, if you put this as yes, then those both change to likely eligible, count spouse and or children only. So, any questions on the screening form? Also, you can ignore this. This is all behind the scenes calculation of household size and income, just so that you can kind of see how those things are calculating into these sections. This will not print, only this stuff will print, but this is here so you can see how they are determining household size. Okay. So, question.
Here, I muted myself. The screening form must be included with all applications, correct?
Yeah, so you will have screening forms that are just screening forms. You will have screening forms that go with an application. So if you have somebody who screens and then decides to apply, it should all be in the same workbook. And then depending on how you keep your files, you might just have a, you might just keep this electronically. You don't have to print it out at all if you don't want to. And then it would all just be in the same thing. If you do print it, you would keep all of those things together. I think we missed one, Chandra.
Did we? Well, the clause, yep, there it is. One job, Taryn, that's all I have. Will the clause for signature part be in Spanish for patients to understand what they are signing?
We will not have a Spanish version of this application. So if you have a patient who speaks a different language, you will need to have an interpretation service or an interpreter or whatever to help explain all of the information to them.
Feedback. I think since HDC is not a program, listing it with what I want to say is HDC is not a program.
Correct. Yes.
Listing it with CICP makes it confusing to those that have to fill this out. And actually, that is a really good point. And I'm assuming, Andrew, are you talking about the residency portion? Because that'll be the one item that's different. If you could let us know, clarify on that. Yeah. And the bottom section where it lists HHS and FPG. That's something that actually is a really good thought. And Taryn, let's discuss that offline.
So having these two combined, Andrew, that's what you think it might be a little bit confusing? Okay. I mean, we can separate them out. It's going to be the same. Like the determination is going to be the same for both.
So if we complete the screening and then continue to complete the application and know at that point that the patient qualifies for CICP or HDC, do we need to notify the patient of the final determination by mail, email, etc.?
Yes, you do. So the way that this should work is you complete the screening with the household or the patient, the guardian, whoever. At the end of this, those results can just be, okay, it looks like you are likely eligible for CICP or hospital discounted care and potentially eligible for CHIP Plus. Again, we are not going to tell them you are likely not eligible for things. We don't want them to think that they're not eligible for something when they are. So if they decide that they're going to go apply for like Health First, even though we haven't told them that we think that they're potentially eligible, we want them to do that. So that is all verbal. And then once they do the actual application, at the end of that, that is when that notification of determination kicks in, where you have to notify them in writing of what the actual results were of their application for CACP or hospital discounted care. And then again, anything that they were found likely or potentially eligible for that is outside of CACP and hospital discounted care.
And is there any reason why there is no Spanish applications available?
The biggest thing is that neither Chandra nor I are native Spanish speakers. We do have a few times where we need to make updates to this pretty quickly, and it would take a while to get things back out if we had to send them back through translation. So that's the biggest reason.
And also, just to get on the coattails of that, the bill stipulated that the patient rights and the opt-out form were to be in Spanish version, not the application. And then also with talking with CHA, all hospitals are required to have interpretation for individuals that do not speak English. And then I also find it odd that patient rights and opt-out forms need to be in different languages, which I just covered that. Again, feedback, but that does not make any sense, not consistent in my opinion. Thank you, Andrew. So what do you say if this shows they are not likely eligible for any programs?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that what you say there is that as they've presented everything, it looks like their federal poverty guideline is over 250%. So you can screen them or have them apply for your internal charity care program. You must inform them though that they still can fill out an application for hospital discounted care and CICP just to make sure that they don't qualify. But yeah, that would be how I would phrase that.
And then clarification, CICP is good for 365 days. HDC is good per incident, correct? If yes, how would we make the distinction on the card if used?
That is not quite correct. So CICP is going to be valid for a year. Hospital discounted care is also going to be valid for a year. That was a change that we made. I think it was after the first set of rules was done, because we did hear from CHA that they were in favor of doing a year. So that was consistent with other requests we had from advocacy groups. So that we decided that that was better for everybody to do that. So the effective dates for if you are a CICP provider, the effective dates are going to be the same if the person is qualified for both CICP and hospital discounted care.
Okay, and then for Spanish language, can each hospital take it upon themselves to have a separate signature form in the preferred language? Excellent
Yes,
question.
You can, yep.
Okay. Would it be more, that just shot up. Would it be more time effective for you to use an interpreter service to update the forms as opposed to all of us having to use them for Spanish speaking patients? Isn't providing it in their language much more beneficial to their understanding? Amber, I can completely understand what you're saying. However, the department was not mandated with creating a Spanish application. This is something I'm not saying that we are dead set against. It's something I definitely can take back in and we can have an internal discussion. But as of right now, there is not a Spanish application. I am not asking because of Andrea's comment that CICP and HDC are in the same box.
Yeah, so that went with
okay.
her previous comment.
And then also required by law. Are we speaking about the application? And then while we're waiting for her to clarify, I heard from CHA that hospital discount care only applies to Colorado residents. Is that correct?
That is correct. So like I had in here before we set this to yes, are you a resident or currently living in Colorado? If you set this to no, then both of the boxes down here for CACP and hospital discounted care say not eligible due to residency. So that is built in here, and that is how it will work. So want to make it clear, you must be a Colorado resident. However, you do not have to prove your lawful presence.
Okay, and just to verify though, with the discounted hospital discounted care, we are not mandating that hospitals limit to just
this.
Colorado, because we are not going to mandate the hospitals that anybody from outside the state can come in and receive care. What we are saying is you do not have to take anybody from another state. Okay.
Yeah, if you would like to use this for out-of-state patients, especially if you're a border hospital, you absolutely can. But that is not that's not mandated. It's just mandated for Colorado residents.
But everyone else is mandated to comply with other rules, but that app is not subject to the same mandates. Again, does not seem to be consistent. Appreciate your thoughts on that, Andrew. As with any bill that has gone through legislative process and has been passed, and that we are implementing, all hospitals or CHA are more than welcome to go forward to lobby for a change in legislature. Just a quick question, because the lawful presence is no longer required, does this mean we no longer need to ask for lawful presence documents?
All right, so that is a CACP question. And as of July 1st, that is correct. You do not need to ask them if they are lawfully present. You do not need to get any documents. You will no longer need access to SAVE for CACP. But so in the month of June, you do still need to do that. There's not a lawful presence affidavit in this workbook, but you will still need to collect one from the patient from all patients. And there is a PDF version of that out on the CACP website that is available in both English and Spanish. But yeah, so once we hit July 1st, you do not need to ask about lawful presence. You do not need to ask for documents. You need none of that. I think we skipped Linda. Again.
Oh, sorry, Linda. Nothing against you. Yes, due to any contract, they should not be signing without understanding.
Yes, so you all are required to have an interpretation service. So you must do that for anybody who states that their preferred language is something other than English.
So we do not have to screen out-of-state residents for hospital discounted care.
So I do want to, you have to screen all uninsured patients. If you know, yeah, you have to, if they're uninsured, you have to screen them. And basically their answer to that residency question is going to be no, and it's going to say that they're not eligible, and then you're done. But it is required by the bill that you have to screen all uninsured patients.
Once we are past July 1st and requesting retro coverage, do we need to request the lawful presence document? Or is this just based on application date?
It's based on application date. So once we hit July 1st, even if they're applying to cover things that are in June or May or April, for CACP at least, you do not need to ask for those things. So once it's July 1st, we no longer care, and the back date is fine, even if they would have had to do lawful presence documents prior to July 1st.
When the hospital offers a FPG of 500%, that would be the hospital's own application?
Oh, that is a wonderful question. And I have set up this application to where it will, hold on, let me take these off real quick. So this will read as a higher FPL. So if you want to use this application for your own internal, you absolutely can, because it is going to tell you what the higher FPL is. And all it's going to do is say that CACP is not applicable and hospital discounted care is also not applicable. So if for some reason you want to do hospital discounted care above 250%, I can absolutely make it to where this will show up for your hospital at a higher percentage. I can put a box in here that says what FPL do you want to cover under hospital discounted care and make it to where it has to be at least 250. I can do that. So, but yes, you can use this for your own if you want. You can have, so it would cover CICP, hospital discounted care, and your own internal charity care program if you would like it to. And I coded it that way on purpose.
So starting July 1st, we can backdate 181 days for CICP.
I mean, technically you could backdate 181 days for CICP now. It's a mandated 90-day backdate. You can always go back farther.
If a patient is here from another country, contact to screen them, and at that point they advise us they have gone back to their country, do we still complete CICP HDC app?
No. If they, I mean, so you contacting them and them saying that they're not a Colorado resident, which they would not be at that point, you've completed the screening, I would say. Chandra, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
So I do want to also clarify that the screening and the application are two separate processes. You must complete the screening for everybody that's uninsured and anybody who is insured who asks to be screened. The application comes after that. So you will have more screenings than you will have applications.
I would like there not to be a cap at the FPG. I like that idea.
Okay, so that is how it works now. Andrew, want to make sure that there's not something additional that you want. I can, like I said, add the box where if you want to do hospital discounted care above 250, that you can put that in. And that would work similar to on our previous applications with the CICP cap, where you could pick the different ones. I think actually we had an additional above 250 on the CICP apps at one point too. So I can do that for sure. That's an easy thing. Okay, cool.
Okay.
It should be FPG.
Yeah, it should be. So if you
Dang
see
it.
an
Okay.
FPL, nice catch. These are which you start looking at these things every day and you don't catch them. So thank you for that. We will double check everything. I had an instance where the mother visits her adult son and gets sick and comes in for a visit. Mother goes back home to country and adult son is her income. We can apply for her, correct?
If you would like to cover her, you can, yes. You don't have to because she doesn't live here. But if you would like to cover her under hospital discounted care, go for it.
Okay, it looks like we're caught up for the second.
Okay. All right. So I think we went through, nope, okay.
Okay, so to clarify, as of June 1st, if we are still working on applications for May, we will still be using the old application until we reach the applications received after June 1st.
Right. So anything that is currently in process, you use the one that is currently in process on, which is the same as it's always been that way for CICP. And then once we hit June 1st and you have people applying as of June 1st, then the CICP providers will move to the uniform application. And then for everybody else, when we hit September 1st, that's when we'll start using this.
I might have missed this. Do we still have to prove Colorado residency?
So prove if they have an ID that has their address, that great. If they have something else that shows their address, also great. A lot of times their address will be on their pay stub, so that would work as well. If for some reason they have nothing that shows their Colorado address, they are allowed to self-declare that they live in the state and they intend to stay, and that establishes Colorado residency per Colorado law.
Okay.
All right, so Patient information tab. So this one pulls a lot of the information from the screening form into this tab. Again, for my CICP providers, this is going to look really familiar. This is, we started with the CICP application, so hopefully everything looks really familiar to you. We've just added in a couple things. So here, most of these things are going to automatically pull over from the screening form. The one that doesn't is the social security number for the patient. So you will need to add that in, but you can see all of these have the things where it'll pull over, but these are all still unlocked. So you would be able to type over them if you need to. And then again, for my CICP providers, the ineligibility codes are here. If you are not a CICP provider, you can just completely ignore these. You don't have to fill anything out. Please don't fill anything out. Just completely ignore them. For CICP, none of this has changed. So just continue on with ineligibility codes as you always have. And then we have the same section for the household members, now 1 through 9 to get to our 10 household members.
Okay, quick question here. Do we still ask for their ID for the application, or is that what is going away with no longer requiring lawful presence?
So they won't need it, like it won't have to be an ID. Their name and everything can be self-attested. They don't have to prove that their name is what they say it is. Their residency, they should have something that has their address, but again, they are allowed to self-declare their intent to remain in Colorado. So yeah, you wouldn't necessarily have to get an ID.
Many times patients get an application from hospital registration staff and then turn it in at our front desk. Do we still need to call them and do the screening form with them?
Yes, per the bill, all uninsured patients must go through this screening process or sign a decline screening form.
Is there anything we need to prove, identity versus lawful presence?
No, CICP providers at the very least have never been tasked with proving identity. So any of the documentation that you gathered previous to this, it never had to be something with a picture on it or anything like that. So that will continue. They do not need you do not need to prove their identity.
How would we verify that a patient is not submitting a fraudulent application if we don't ask for ID?
So like I said, you can still ask for an ID. You just don't have to ask for an ID. And on the application, we do have this statement about filling this out, misrepresenting their eligibility, that they could be charged with a crime and it is fraud and things like that. So if you find that somebody was submitting a fraudulent application, you can send their information to your county DA for prosecution.
Okay.
All right. So the rest of the patient information tab is kind of the same. It's just the same household member information. And again, the name and their relationship will pull over. Their birthday needs to be filled out. If they have a Health First Colorado or CHIP number, you can put that here. And then their social security number here. And again, this is labeled CICP only. So you do not have to collect it if you are just doing hospital discounted care. Here is our worksheet 1. And I did just have I put an X in the screening form. So that's coming over as the second household member. And let's see. So yesterday I just put in some random information in here for these. So if you do the year-to-date methodology, I think we just did something like that. So this would come off of their pay stub, should be a year-to-date line. And we're just going to pretend that this person doesn't have any sort of tips or bonuses or commissions. So this is just their straight year-to-date. Pick a pay period type. So I'll pick biweekly. That will tell you, it populates here that there's 26 biweekly pay periods in a year. You would put in how many checks they have received. So you would need to figure out from their paycheck how many paychecks they have received thus far. So let's say that, and don't guess, I just guessed, but don't guess. So let's say that there's 11 since it's the beginning of May. So we get that their gross income is 2941.74. And again, these are all made up. And then you just enter it here. And that pulls it down into the total. It annualizes over here. And then you do, if the other household member is also has year to date, you would just take this out. You know, this, since you typed this in, it doesn't affect that. And you can do this for however many family members have a job and have their income counted. So I want to reiterate, working minors and adult students living with their parents, we don't count their income. So don't count any of those patients. But for these two, we'll just say that they're spouses. So we had the first one, we'll say the second one is paid on a paycheck without a year to date. So we picked semi-monthly, put in their 4 most recent pay stubs, and we get 2015.50. That brings their total to just under 5,000, and it updates their annualized income. If they were to have any of these payments, we would put them here. So if you put something in this section, you can see it annualizes over here. However, if you were to put something in this one, it just pulls it straight over because this is annual or one time. So there's no additional calculation that happens here. And then for these, they can be either documented or self-declared. And you do want to check which ones, because if this gets pulled for auditing, the auditor is going to look for anything that is checked as documented, whereas they know that anything that's self-declared would not necessarily have anything in there stating what the amount is. And like I mentioned, the only signature on this now is the eligibility text signature. And this can be signed with DocuSign if you'd like. And so. Questions on worksheet 1? All right. Worksheet 2. So in our one yesterday, we got a question about, oh yes, worksheet 1, the signature is just for the eligibility tech. Yep. Okay, so worksheet 2, yesterday we got a question about rental properties. So we did an example with that. So for this one, we said that the person, they have a rental property, but they also have a business or an office that they work out of at their home. So we put in the square footage of the home, the square footage of their, the space that in their home that they use as their office, and then how many hours per week they work out of their home. Put in that the monthly gross income is $1,200. And then this information pertains to their home, whereas this information here would pertain to the rental property, and we have put that on here. So rental property mortgage, and then a pretend HOA that they had. And you can see that it takes $900 of this in full, because that does pertain to the business, so that is in full. And then it takes $34.92 of the household where the person actually works out of. And so that is where that total expenses line comes from.
Karen, is the patient name prior to the other household members the person who signs the application, or the patient name can be different than the person signing the application?
So the patient should be the person who signs the application, except for in the case of minors. So if the minor is the patient, then it would need to be a guardian that signs it.
So if someone was receiving unemployment and has received $4,000 so far this year and has $2,000 left that they are eligible for, is the total payment number $2,000, $4,000, or $6,000?
It would be 2,000 because you're looking at from today forward. So the way that it's always worked for CICP is that we look at from today, what do we expect the person to have an income of for the next 12 months? So if we are expecting that they are going to get $2,000 more, then that's what we would count. All right. Okay, we have questions on worksheet 2.
Thought they didn't have to sign the app.
So we do still have the lines for the eligibility tech, but the lines for the applicant have been, or the patient have been taken out except for on the application. And that can be the electronic signature, the signature by like email, or by phone call. Yeah, and I think that for our facilities that use like DocuSign, you could do, instead of having your eligibility tech sign each individual worksheet, you could have them sign like the packet using DocuSign, and that would work as well.
Good clarification. Thank you.
Okay. So worksheet 3, again, this is the deductions, and this is going to be based on your own policies. There are no mandated deductions for CICP or for hospital discounted care. So for this one, I had put in one just to kind of show how it works. So the frequency, we have one time, monthly, quarterly, and annual. So depending on which one you choose, it's going to definitely change your annualized amount. So make sure you choose the correct one. And again, eligibility tech. And if you wanted to have them declare that they have no deductions, you can do that, but you don't have to if they don't have deductions. All right, so, well, let's see, we made it to where they don't quite qualify. There we go. All right, so the application, I don't know why this got zoomed back out. All right, so we didn't fill any of this in, but this would all populate here. We have the patient and the household member, the relationship, date of birth, the social security will populate here. These are ineligibility codes, and then this is a drop down over here in this column. And again, the options here are CICP and hospital discounted care, just hospital discounted care, or just CICP. And depending on what you choose here, so see, we have CICP chosen here. So we have the annual cap shows up here. If we change this to just hospital discounted care, this goes to not applicable, but your other ones stay there. And goes to CICP, those still stay, but most likely you won't have anybody who's just on CICP, so.
We just got 2 of the same question. How can a patient have both HDC and CICP?
Man, that was like jinx on you too. So CICP, or the way that the bill reads for hospital discounted care, is that it covers anything that CICP does not. CICP per statute only mandates that hospitals cover emergency care under CICP. Everything else is optional. So, and by cover, I mean discount, because it's not coverage. So there are things that hospitals provide in general that are not CICP eligible. The one that I use most often is behavioral health care. We are not allowed to discount that under CICP because there's a different program that is responsible for that. So CICP cannot also discount it. So they can be on both, depending on your policies on what you allow under CICP. There may not be a lot of things that are covered under hospital discounted care instead of CICP. But it's going to vary from hospital to hospital, but they would be eligible for both, and most likely If they qualify for CICP, they will be on both. I don't think there is a situation where they would be on CICP only. Starting September 1st at least. So
I would say the only time they would be on CICP only is when the CICP hospital starts using this. And then effective September 1st, once all hospitals start doing the hospital discounted care, all you'll need to do is go in and select CICP and HDC if that qualifies. So it's a quick fix instead of you having to redo a new application, since the uniform application is going to be required. Question, can we override the monthly max for a facility if there will not be a billing cap for facility for our organization, and in some cases the provider as well?
I'm Andrew, I'm not sure I understand your question. Because they're per the builder's cap. So are you talking about if you're using it for your other charity care program? Or first, I just want to make sure I understand. If you'd like to ask over the phone too, you can do that. Just raise your hand and I can unmute you. Okay. So this is a max. So it's still the max, even if you decide to write everybody or write off everybody. So let's see. I wonder if there's a way I could do. I might be able to make it to where you could do something that is at most 4%. I'll have to play with it.
And that's something we can discuss. I mean, as far as what the hospitals need to remember is this is the max. You can't charge more than what is listed. However, you can do less. So the big thing is when auditing comes around, that's one of the things they'll be looking at, is ensuring the max is correct on the application and the patient was not billed more than what the max is. Okay, could we type in 100% adjustment for qualifying accounts or something like that, then from an audit standpoint, support the IZ?
Well, so Andrew, I guess I have a question for you because I know where you work. Are you going to be adjusting off all of the CICP balances as well, or just things that don't fall under CICP? Because I would feel like it would also be confusing if we have a $0 in your monthly max and then you tell them they have a copay. So just something to kind of think about there too. Okay, yeah. So it might be confusing to have those set at 0 and then tell them they have a copay and have to explain to them that it's CICP. Yeah, hopefully 9/1. We don't have any expectation, or we don't have any reason to believe it won't be September 1st, but you are correct, it has not been signed yet. But yeah, so we'll figure out how to, if there's a way that we can make that adjustable as long as it doesn't go over the 4%. But yeah, it might be confusing if it says 0 and then you tell them they have a copay if they're CICP. So, okay.
Hey, Taryn, we're a little over halfway through. What do you think about taking a small break?
Yes, let's do that, especially since it's about noon. So let's take about 10 minutes. We'll come back at 5 till. You guys can go grab some water, some food, stretch your legs, whatever you need to do. And we will see you all back in about 10 minutes. Okay, so
Taryn, I believe we had a question that came in right after we did break. Just to clarify, the patient and the signature do not need to match if the patient is a minor, correct?
Correct, yes. So you would just have the parent or guardian, which I think, yeah. So we have patient or guardian signature and date on the application one, which again, that can be done via email or over the phone, whatever. So yeah, so it does not have to be the patient, especially if the patient is minor. No, Thank you for clarification. All right.
And then I'm sorry, I did not hear the answer to this question. Can the applicant have both CICP and HDC?
Yes, they can. So CICP provider, I would say that most of the time, if the person is completing an application for CICP, they'll be on both programs. I don't think there's a situation where they would be on CICP and not on hospital discounted care. They can be on hospital discounted care and not CICP, but I don't think there's any situation where we go the other way around. So yes, they can be on both. All right. So we are on the application tab. We went over how this all pulls over. So we have patient and household members, their relationship, all of these things. The employment income pulls over from worksheet 1, as well as the unearned income. The self-employment pulls over from worksheet 2, gives you a ground total, annualizes everything. Deductions come from worksheet 3, and then we have the grand total with the adjustment from any deductions that you count. You have the FPG that will be updated, household size, and then the annual cap for CICP and the monthly maximums for the facility and the physician for hospital discounted care.
We just got in. I apologize. I wanted to verify, can patients provide client statement income or we need proof?
So for this, there are certain things that you are allowed to ask for to prove their income. However, if you choose to take them on a self-attestation, you are allowed to do that. Okay. So we have the penalty clause, and you can see there's 3 out of these 4 statements are CICP only. We have that they have 30 calendar days to appeal their eligibility determination for both CICP and hospital discounted care, and that they can ask for more information, all the signature things. And then at the bottom, we have the notes section. So this would be where you want to put anything that is a little bit out of the ordinary for the application. If you end up calling them to let them know what their determination is for hospital discounted care or CICP, you can put that in here too, and that's what would substitute for the signature. And I do want to reiterate, you still have to send them written documentation of their determination notice. So just calling them or sending it by email does not meet your requirements for this. So just want to make that clear. That's 2 separate things.
Taryn, just to throw in there really quick, so there is not confusion, if you can scroll right back up, please, to where you were prior. Maybe we can put a note in there actually stating that determination letter still needs to be sent, and then that way there's no confusion.
Yep. Okay, any questions on the application tab or anything else that we've covered so far? So our next tab is for the CICP card. And again, this is just CICP. It has all of the copays. So this should look really familiar to our CICP providers. It's the same as it always has been, except that now we have the 10 household members total. To put somebody on this card, they have to have the ineligibility code. So for example, if the second household member should not have been on here, we would just go back to the patient information tab. This is where their ineligibility code is. We take this out, so there's no code. You can see on the application now they don't have a code, and now they're not on the card. So that's how you take them off of there.
Okay, we've received a couple of questions here. Can you provide examples of when I would only have HDC?
So really that's only going to be at our non-CICP providers. Or if the person does not want to provide their social, or if they don't want to sign the no social security number form. Really, other than that, it's the eligibility and the documentation requirements are going to be the same for both programs or both things, not programs, not a program.
Still do it every now and then.
God.
Okay, and then Crystal, you have some questions about appeals. We actually went over that in our previous trainings. I've marked your question down. If we have time at the end, we'll cover it. If not, you can send your question to the hospital discounted care email. And then next question, we accept CICP for all services. We provide exempt dental and specialty clinic. You stated that HDC would cover any services that is not covered by CICP. Are there any other examples of services that HDC would cover? Should we not be accepting CICP for all services?
All right. So CICP only mandates that our providers cover emergency medical. And that's how it's always been. And then most of our providers choose to provide things above that emergency medical. So, like you said, Dorothy, that your facility does all services except for a couple things. You can absolutely keep that. We encourage you to keep your CICP policies as is. And then hospital discounted care would be what applies to potentially your dental and your specialty clinics. Dental schools that you have are exempt from hospital discounted care. But if you provide other dental, then that would fall under hospital discounted care. The other example that I shared earlier that CICP cannot cover is behavioral health. So if your facility does behavioral health services, that would be under hospital discounted care. And yeah, you should continue to accept CICP for everything that your facility has determined you will accept CICP for. We are definitely not advocating for you to reduce those. So hopefully that answered your question.
And then it says deductions. Can this also be on the client statement?
That would be up to your facility if you decide to get documentation for deductions or not. I think you skipped one, Chandra.
Oh, don't tell me it's Laura again. Okay.
No.
Would abortion be an example of what CICP does not cover?
CICP only covers abortions in certain situations, I think. Hold on, let me pull up exactly what it says real quick. I don't want to misspeak in the way that it's worded. So CICP excludes abortions except as specified in 25.5-3-601 CRS, which is where our statute is. So I'd have to go figure out what exactly that says. So CICP, though, in general doesn't do abortions. I think it's unless they're medically necessary. I think it's probably what it is, but.
Okay. If a patient has both CICP and HDC, will they now have two copays to cover, or does HDC cover CICP copays?
Okay, so if your facility is going to cover something under CICP, then that is what the copay would be for that service. If there is a service that they get in addition to the CICP discounted service that you do not normally discount under CICP, then that would go under the hospital discounted care rules. If you set up a payment plan for them, then the total payment for the CICP services and the hospital discounted care services, that has to follow that 4%, 2% max and the 36 months. For CICP copays, they're going to be a lot lower than what the max would be. So it's probably not going to take the full 36 months or the full 4%. And for CICP, that 10% copay cap that we have where they are no longer responsible for copays, that's going to apply to everything under CICP and hospital discounted care, solely because tracking those for any of you is going to be next to impossible. So we're trying to make that as easy as possible. Just say now that cap covers anything that they have for CICP and hospital discounted care.
So under our CICP, we don't allow CICP for sleep study service or wound care service. So would this then go to HDC?
Yes, it would.
Okay, I think we're caught up.
Okay. All right. So for this CICP card, I can't remember now if the current one does this or not, but we have the rating drop down here that you choose where the rating falls. So this one's 248. So it falls in the 201 to 250, and that's what puts the copays on. If it was lower, you would choose the lower one, and that changes those copays. So again, this is the CICP only card, and it has this lovely little rating thing. And these all pull from the welcome letter that we'll get to in just a minute. And we also have a combo card. So for this one, it will have all of the same information, except that this last column here, instead of having the social for CICP, it's going to have the program code, even though hospital discounted care is not a program. I don't have a better word for that. So for this one, you can see the patient is on CICP, and then we could put this one on hospital discounted care. And now they'll show up here. You could also change them both to both programs. And then that's, where did that go? Okay, that's weird. That should be coming up. So I'll have to figure out why that's not working. But the other ones worked. That didn't make any sense. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. That's why. There we go. Hold on. Check it one more time. Nope, that's not showing up. Okay, I don't know what's going on there, so I'll fix that. So that will be fixed, but that will be how you put people on this card. This is the same. It has the CICP copays. Again, you pick from the drop down. If you are a non-CICP hospital, you can choose no CICP, and that will set them all to NA for CICP, so that it is hopefully a little bit clearer to the patient that CICP copays do not apply at your facility. Yeah, so then these all pull again from the welcome letter, which is in a couple tabs, and we will go over that then. The next one is the CICP client responsibilities, and we went over this in the slides. This is information only. You don't have to have them sign it. You don't have to keep it in the application. It's just purely informational for the household. All right, here's the welcome letter. Again, it has that same drop down, and I did make a mistake and I didn't unlock these ones, but these ones will be unlocked just in case you use a different copay scale. It's not the normal CICP copay scale. Again, all of the same rules for the copay scales still apply for CICP. So if you have an alternative one, you do need to send that in for approval for CICP. Otherwise, you would default to using the CICP one. If there's something that you don't cover, so like prescriptions is the one that I used yesterday, you can put in NA. And then when you select the rating, that one will come up as NA. So you can see here it says prescription drugs, and it has a not applicable. So this, when you change them here, that's also where these cards pull from. So you can see our prescriptions are also NA on here. And then our final one is the no social security number one. It is clearly marked, it's CICP, and is only for anybody who does not have a social, and this one must be signed. All right, that's all of my tabs. Do we have any other questions about the application in general, or anything, policies with it, anything at all? Or is there anything that you want me to go back over and do in more detail? And also I have another one. So I did want to show you all. Oh, question. When will it be? It is currently available. It's on both the hospital discounted care and the CICP websites, which will throw. There's the hospital discounted care one. And then CICP, they're the same, but whichever website you're more comfortable using or more familiar with, they're both on there. Again, there's changes that are going to be made because we did have a couple things that I identified that were coded wrong. And like you just saw with the one card, for whatever reason, it's not pulling up when I select both of those, or the hospital discounted care and CICP. I don't know why, so I'll have to figure that out. So there will be an update prior to June 1st when our CICP providers use it. And it's very likely that there'll be additional updates before everybody starts using it on September 1st.
So we'll need to fill in the copay info with our copay amounts.
Yes, for CICP. And again, it's only if your alternative copay table has been approved by the department. So you will need to send those in with your application, which you should all be doing. I think they're due tomorrow. Send that in there and we will get them looked over and let you know if we have any questions. So
for people who have both CICP and HDC and the service is CICP covered, they pay that copay. HDC would only come into play for behavioral health.
So not only for behavioral health, that's just my example that I use, but yes, if they have both CICP and hospital discounted care, CICP is going to be applied first. And then hospital discounted care for anything that you do not discount under CICP. So behavioral health is my example. Somebody asked about abortions. I believe that those would mostly fall under hospital discounted care. I think, I don't know. I'd have to look up the thing, but let's see, what's some other ones? If you are, for whatever reason, covering a non-medically, no, I guess they're all medically necessary under hospital discounted care. If your CICP policy is not to cover elective surgeries, then those would be under hospital discounted care. Yeah, so it's going to depend on what your facility discounts under CICP as to what falls under hospital discounted care. Hopefully that makes sense. I didn't just talk in circles.
Can you review again how the payment plan will work for patients who have both CICP and HDC?
Yes. Okay. So for CICP, again, that one's going to be applied first. So let's say they have a hospital stay. So we can go, we have that an inpatient, let's just use the highest one. So the inpatient facility, their copay is $630. So for, you know, a family where their maximum monthly payment is $100 under hospital discounted care, that would be what you would set up the payment plan for CICP. So this one would go for, if you were to do it at the max, it would go for 7 months, with the 7 month being $30 instead of $100. If they have additional services that are not CICP, they would fall under the hospital discounted care rules, where so you'd have the $630 for the CICP copay, and then any additional services would have to fall into the months that follow, that cannot be more than 36. So in this case, you could do the full 36 if their other services are going to hit the max. So they all have to fall under the same plan, is kind of what I'm getting at.
I think this brings up a good point. We have examples in our FAQs and also the operations manual. I'm thinking we might want to go ahead and do a couple of examples when using both CICP and HDC.
Yes, and we can do that. I can try to get a couple of those made up for the CICP training. That's going to be next week. Next Thursday, I believe, is the first one.
Has to meet Medicare, medical necessity as defined by CCR 10-2505-10, correct?
I would have to check that reference, but I believe so. I think we are using the medical necessary determination that is in the Medicaid rules, the state's Medicaid rules.
That is correct.
And again, it's hospital discounted care mandates that at the very least you cover medically necessary things. If you want to cover non-medically necessary things, that's up to your facility.
And all of that was in our past trainings along with in the operations manual. And we are going to go ahead and do one more training over policies and the
Yes.
operations manual. It seems some people missed the 2 trainings that we had. So please sign up for the newsletter as we'll be sending that out of what the date will be for the final training.
Mhm. I'm going to put the link. There is a link directly on the hospital discounted care website, which I just dropped that in the chat again. There's a link directly on there to sign up for the newsletters that the department has. So when you click on that, it'll have a whole list. You just scroll down to find hospital discounted care, click it. It'll sign you up. You'll start getting the newsletters. If you haven't signed up for the CACP ones and you're a CACP provider, please do that as well. There's 3 different ones for that. The one that you would want for program information is the program information one. It says the link is broken. Oh no. Okay, hold on. I don't want the link to be broken. It worked for me. Here, I'll put it here. It's a very weird link. This is the link directly to HCPUF's email list. So let me know if that one doesn't work.
Yeah, I just put the link in and it worked for me. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
Okay, well, we might have to contact IT to let them know something's wrong. I wonder if this is like a not in network type thing. I don't know. Okay, Michelle, did this one work for you? Okay, worked for, okay, I don't know. I don't know then.
And that'll be our top priority after training is finding
Wow.
out what's going on there.
Okay, yeah, because it looks like it's working for some and not for others, so that doesn't make any sense, but okay. Yeah. We'll get that figured out and hopefully we can get that. And if you continue to try and it doesn't work, let me know and I can see if we can add you on our end. All right. So I had made up just a silly little household thing here to show you how everything pulls through. So I used the Avengers because my son is 3 and he's obsessed with them. So that's just what was on my mind. So I have a bunch of the Avengers on here, have the address, which is conveniently in Denver, have a phone number and an email, birth dates, answer all these questions for these. So have all of the Avengers are living in one household, and we have a facility deduction. So you can see down here, as entered, we have a household size of 10. We have a household income of $152,000 a month, which is very high. But then their FPG is still on the low side because they have 10 people in it. So 272 with this definition. For Health First, we have an estimated household size of 4. So this would count up here. We have, Tony Stark is our patient. We have Pepper Potts, who is his wife, and then Morgan Stark, who is their child. And then the 4th person actually comes from Peter Parker, who is also technically a minor. So that is where the 4 comes from, and that, potentially wrong because, unless Tony has guardianship over Peter, probably not counted on his taxes, so probably not in the Health First, but gives us a starting point. And then for hospital discounted care, you can see the household size is the same. Again, it's counting those 4 But then the income is a little bit different, and that's because it's taking the deductions into account there, and their FPG is 135.
Taryn, if the patient verifies they are not a resident of Colorado, what fields are required to be filled out to comply with state law?
I think you still ask them most, if not all, of the questions. It says that the screening must be completed. So if we take that, as stated, it would be you'd have to go through all of the questions with them. And then when you get to the end, it's just going to say that they're not eligible for CICP or hospital discounted care due to their residency. All right. Okay, so the reason that since the CICP and hospital discounted care household and FPG is different than the way that the entire household was presented, that's why these two end up saying likely eligible count spouse and or children only, because that is how this FPG is created, is by counting just the two married household members and then the minor children that are listed on the application. So that's where you get this difference. Whereas if it was just those four entered, this would just read as likely eligible.
Does that answer your question, Claire?
Yeah, so the way that this is coded, households can count unrelated adults in their application if they want, or even related adults. But if counting those adults puts them into a situation where they wouldn't qualify, which is what happened here, where they are above the 250, what the application does down over here is it looks at, if we were just going to count the person's spouse and any children that they've listed, what would that household and income look like? And if this is lower than 250, or if it's lower than the other one, at least if it's lower than as presented, that's what it puts here. And the reason for that is that the only person that is mandated to be included in the application is the person's spouse. And that is a Colorado law. It's spouse or civil union partner or common law marriage partner. You must include them on the application, that Colorado law. So that's why we're looking at that. And then minor children are always better to include for the patient, because it's going to make their household size go up, leave their income the same, and make their FPG lower. So moving to the patient information, you can see everything pulled over, and then we have a pretend social in here for Mr. Stark. We've put in ineligibility code, so we've decided that they've gotten a denial letter. Same with Pepper. We have her house, or we have her birthday added in here. We have her pretend social security number, and I've done that for all of the people on this list here. Worksheet 1, you can see how everybody gets pulled over into the box. We have, even the minors get pulled over, but theirs are just left as blanks there. So we have Peter and Morgan left as blanks. Everybody else has an income, so we put them there. And then no other monthly unearned income sources. We didn't do any sort of home business. And then we have worksheet 3, we have healthcare premiums, amount, daycare expenses amount, both monthly frequency. So that comes out there. And then over here, this is where we pull everybody over. So you can see Pepper is the only one that we don't have an ineligibility code for, and this is again CICP only. And because of that, she is left off the card. So you can see it goes straight from Tony to Morgan. So patient is Tony, Morgan is the third person, and Pepper is missing, and that's the reason why. See, it's showing up on this one, so I don't know why it wasn't showing on the other one. So this one's based on this column here of the application. So we have a couple that are missing this selected program. So that's why we have a couple blank spots on this card. And everybody's pulls over as to what is indicated in this line. You have their cap and their monthly maxes, household size. And that's how the two cards work out. So I just wanted to show you an example of how all of this stuff moves through the application with as many things filled out as possible. So if you have any questions, is there anything else that you want to see put in a certain way? Any questions about the application? I think we have like half an hour, so we can circle back to questions that are not about the application if we'd like. Whatever you all want and or need from this time.
Okay, can you go back over the rating selection that pulls into the card?
Sure. Okay. All right, so for the CACP card only, which is this one, that one goes off of their ineligibility code. And that's how that card has always pulled, is by the ineligibility code. So, and the reason for that is for a CICP patient, if they don't have an ineligibility code, then they are potentially eligible for Health First or CHIP Plus, and therefore you can't put them on CICP until you know for sure. So if we go back to the patient information and we remove another one, so we'll remove this one. So now we have 2 spots open there. And that removed Bruce off of here too. So now we have 2 open spots.
Michelle, on her explanation, did that give you your answer?
Yes. Okay. All right. And then for the CACP and or hospital discounted care card, see what is going on here? Okay. I have to figure this out. I'm not sure why it's doing this. For these ones, you would, let's see if that fixed it. It did. Okay. So something's going on there. I have to figure out. All right. So for these ones, it goes off of this one. So you would pick which one they are eligible for. Again, there's really probably not going to be a time once everybody starts using this in September where they're just going to be eligible for CICP. It's probably only going to be CICP and hospital discounted care. So you pick whichever one here, and that's what pulls them over here. So we have 2 members of this household that don't have that. So that's these 2 right here. So that's, let's see, Steve Rogers and Peter Parker. And you can see that they are not on this card. So that's how those ones pull over. Is there a different part of it that you wanted an explanation on, or was that good? The ineligibility codes are in the manual, yes, and there's no change to those from how we've had them in the past. So those should be the same for all of our CICP providers. And again, that's CICP only section, and it is listed that way, CICP only.
How does this relate to the rating numbers highlighted on the card tab?
So this, I'm assuming, is what you mean. So their rate. So this will be FPG, but this will be their rate for both CICP and hospital discounted care. This is what their federal poverty guideline level is. So 221. So on the cards, both of them have that section where you do the rating drop down. And that is to, why is this thing? Okay, something's going on with this. The rating, hold on, let me. I don't know why it's all walked funny. Since they're 221, they fall in the 201 to 250 range, and this is for the CICP copays. So that's what brings these over here. If it was, say that they were at 165, we would put them in the 160 to 185 range, and that changes those copays. Those copays are all listed on the CICP welcome letter one, where it has the table where providers can update this if they have an approved alternative copay schedule. So if you are not a CICP provider, you wouldn't be using the CICP card. So there's no reason, you can just ignore this one completely. If you are deciding to use this template for hospital discounted care, then you could choose no CICP on here, and it'll make all of these NA for not applicable. Anything else? Is there anything that you would want in this application that's not in it? That's maybe a dangerous question, but don't laugh at me, Chandra.
Living on the edge today. Can
I know.
someone that applies for HDC use the CICP or HDC card to go to a CICP facility?
Yes. So if a patient completes a determination at a facility that is not a CICP provider, they would be able to, if they had their card or if they take their determination notice, if they take that to a CICP provider, the CICP provider could use that determination instead of doing a brand new determination for them at that facility. So there is an element of portability to these ratings. It's not a mandated, because we do know that some of our facilities will continue to use their own deductions for them. So deductions are not going to be the same for everybody. So there might be a slight difference there. Facilities can make a policy where they just accept any rating that comes to them. They can make a policy where they request, with the patient's permission, a copy of the application that they did at a different facility to be able to figure out what the deductions were on their original one, and if they want to update it to match that facility's deduction policy. So there's going to be different ways that you would be able to make those determinations portable between one facility and the next. So you absolutely can just take it at face value and just take it. That'd be great. That's best, for the patient. It's easiest probably for you all, because you don't have to worry about doing a new determination. But yes, so very long way to say yes, that can happen.
Is the facility name able to be added to the card template so we know where they were rated?
Yes, it is, and it does. So it says HCPF on it because that's what I have here. But it's also in the screening. It comes from the screening one. Sorry, let me quick scroll. So you'd put the hospital facility name here. So, if we change this, so if we do like state programs, that's the unit that Chandra and I are in, then it updates on the card. You can see it says state programs unit. So whatever goes in there is what's going to be on the card. And the phone number will be for the facility as well.
Can the date of birth cell be formulated as a date of birth so we can just place the numbers in there without using symbols?
I think it is. Are you talking about here? These ones, I think it should just be, yeah. So like if we put in, let's do today, oh, I see what you mean. So numbers. So like this. Yeah, that doesn't work. Maybe. I would have to figure out what the how to format that to make it do that. So instead of doing the actual like that. Okay. I would have to look and see if I can figure out how to do that. But potentially.
If we do take an outside application from another facility, what documentation can we obtain from the patient to be compliant with state law and audits?
Good question. So if you decide to take a card that the person has, or if they bring you their determination notice that shows what their rating, their household, all of that is, you would just need to take a copy of it. So a scan, you could do a picture or a scanner or whatever, and keep it with their patient file, so that if their file or their account gets pulled for auditing, you can supply the copy of that card or letter to the auditor to show that you did verify that they had been rated somewhere else. We also have one in the Q&A pod.
So if they already have a CICP HDC card from another facility and we decide to accept it, will we still have to complete a screening?
No. So if they already have a card, they've been screened. So you can just take the card and again, keep a copy of the card or the letter, whichever one they bring in their file, and that will meet all of your screening and application requirements. So I've presented everything that I had planned on presenting. So technically we can be done if you all don't have any other questions. Chandra and I can also stick around, but you are free to go at this point if you don't have any additional questions. If you think of something afterwards, you can send it to the CICP inbox, the hospital discounted care inbox, either one. They all pretty much come to me, so you'll get an answer from me most likely. But yeah, if you'd like to stick around, you're more than welcome, and Chandra and I will stick around as well.
What if the patient doesn't present themselves with a determination letter or card at the time of service at another facility? Would a new screening be performed?
You can do a new screening. Like I said, one of the questions in the screening is if they have a current CICP rating. Which now that I'm thinking about it, we could probably update that to say unexpired CICP or hospital discounted care program rating. And if they say yes, then you'd be able to, once you get done with the screening, just ask them if they can provide documentation of that rating or determination. If they know what facility did their original one, you can also get their permission to call the facility and ask for the facility to send it over to you. Either one of those things works. But if they say that they have one, you wouldn't necessarily have to do the screening if they say that first, as long as they can get you the documentation of it. If they can't, then you would need to do the screening to make sure that you're following all of the rules.
All right, so I want to go ahead and hit this question that we had earlier. And I'm not sure if the person is still on. When I read this, if you could holler if you are. Appeals are performed by the department, correct? Not the facility? If so, can there be an appeals process available to provide to the patient to complete? Appeals process sheet or document. Are you still on?
Did you write down the name by chance, Chandra?
Oh,
yeah,
yep,
Crystal.
still
Okay.
on.
Thought so. There is an appeals process. We did detail it in the presentation on the policies and procedures. But basically the appeals is going to start at the facility level. So in your determination notice that you send to the patients, it will need to have in there information on how to file an appeal with the facility. They have 30 days, I think 30 days to file the appeal in writing. Once you at the facility receive that, you have 3 business days to respond to let them know that you have received it. You then have 15 calendar days. I'm I want to make sure I have it all right. I
It
believe
is it is 15.
okay, so 15 calendar days from the date that you receive it to do a redetermination with the information that you have to make sure that everything was done correctly. And within that 15 days, you also have to send them notice of your redetermination, and you must copy the department when you do that. The department is going to keep record of all of those as well. If the patient decides that they are still not happy with the redetermination and the appeal at the provider level, they then have 15 calendar days to appeal in writing to the department. If that happens, the department will have 15 days to look over everything and make a final determination. And that determination will be sent to the patient and the original facility as well. And that appeal process works for if they were determined ineligible, if their determination was based on incorrect information, and also if they did not get a determination letter within those 15 days after their application was completed.
And then I'm sorry, I was interrupted by someone and did not hear the response to Crystal's first question about card from outside facilities.
So I think that was if the what documentation is needed. Is that right, Tenny? Just want to make sure. Okay. Yeah. So if you accept a card or a letter or no determination notice from another facility, you just have to keep a copy of it in their file, just like you would with CICP card. Just, upload it into their patient file so that you have it. And yeah, that would meet all of the requirements for the screening and all of that if you just accept the other card.
Is there a determination template available to send to patients?
Currently, no, there's not. There's a list of everything that needs to be included, but there's not a template. All right, do we have any other questions? I'm putting the email addresses in the chat so you have them. So the first one's hospital discounted care, second one's CICP, just in case you need them to send questions in later.
And then we got another question. Once approved or processed for CICP HDC, what documents from this Excel does the patient need to obtain to be compliant with state law?
Sorry, what? I'm not sure I understand what the patient needs to obtain, or what does the hospital need to, or what do you need to send to them? I'm sorry, I want to make sure I understand. Okay, so per the bill, you must send them notification of the determination. Per the rules and listed in the provider manual, there is a whole list of things that need to be included in that determination. Cards are not mandatory, but you can also do a card. But yeah, so it's just going to be that determination or the notification of determination that is mandated that you have to send to them. And that, let me see. Let me find the list of things. So the determination notice must include the programs and discounts for which the patient was determined likely eligible for, where to find additional information on all of those and how to apply. Any relevant application deadlines for the programs that they screened potentially or likely eligible for. So for instance, Health First Colorado, I believe, is a 90-day. So you need to let them know when that 90-day window is going to expire for them to apply for that. You need to let them know the dates for which the discounted care determination is valid if they're found eligible, or the dates that they were applying for that they were found ineligible for. The household size and income used to determine the eligibility and their FPG, the 4% and 2% payment limits based on their calculated gross household income. If they were applying and approved for CICP, what their CICP rating is, which will match their FPG. If they were applying and approved for CICP, their copayment cap. If the facility is not a CICP provider, where they may obtain CICP services, and how to file a complaint or an appeal. So the whole list, it is in the operations manual. And it is a little bit different between patients found eligible and patients found ineligible for discounted care.
So if the card is printed from Excel, how would that look in real life?
It looks, I can do a real quick. So the way, if you print this out exactly as it stands right now, it should be able to be folded into like a credit card size thing. If all of my stuff stayed right. So they should be able to like put it in their wallet. But so this will be what it looks like. And if you fold it along this line and then along this line, it should be about the size of a credit card so they can put it in their wallet, I believe. I haven't tested it in a while, but that's what it should look like.
And there's no issues with laminate those cards, is there, Taryn?
No, it might just be a little hard if they're, it's 4 sides that you're folding. Guess it would only be 2 sides because you could fold it and then laminate it and then you'd have to fold it again.
Okay, if our facility is a non-CICP facility and we do an HDC application in the CICP or HDC card, how does the CICP copay cap amount apply? Should it be changed to NA as well, like everything else when you chose the no CICP and ratings?
Yes, and it should do that. So if we change all of these to hospital discounted care. Okay, so now there's no CICP over here. This gets set to NA. And that carries through to the card there. So if you have everything right on the application, it should set that one to NA automatically. And then this one would control these. All right, I think that's 5 till. So I think Sean and I will stick around for a few more minutes, but thank you all for your questions. They really do help us because we don't know what we're missing, that you guys can tell us. So thank you for that. Again, if you have anything after this, please send it to either one of the 2 inboxes. I will get back to you as soon as I can on a few things. If we haven't discussed one of the questions that you sent it may take a little bit more time than normal, just because we'll have to make sure that we're answering it correctly and thinking through everything. But yeah, so send those questions in. And if you have not signed up for the Q&A session that's next Tuesday, please do. We're going to go over all of the questions that were asked in all of the sessions so far for hospital discounted care. So that is next Tuesday at 10, I think. Hold on, let me check. Yep, 10 to 1, so same time as this one. And yeah, we'll go over all the other questions and there'll be time hopefully for additional questions. And then all of the slides will be updated and available to you after that. The recordings for this one should be available in a little, maybe a week or so. I'll have to check with our admin to see when those can be posted. And yeah, thank you all.
Hey, Taryn, if individuals would like to go in and play around with the app, are they able to do that right now?
Yes, it's available on the website right now. Like I said earlier, we have identified a few errors, and you saw before where there's a couple things that weren't working quite right. So it'd be really great actually, if everybody could do that and let me know what you find that isn't working correctly, so I can make sure that we get those all fixed. But yeah, so please do, especially for our CICP providers, if you want to throw one in there, that like an application that you're working on, just to see if everything if everything works out the same. That would be great. Yeah, so it is available. It's on it's on both the CICP and the hospital discounted care website. So whichever one you go to, it should be available there. On the hospital discounted care, it's there's a set of 5 links at almost the top of the page. It's the 5th link. On the CICP page, it's available under the client application section.
Great. All right. I want to thank everybody for showing up.
All right. Yes. Thank you again for your questions, and we hope to see you on Tuesday.